Now, our next speaker, and by the way, all of our speakers, they have a pretty good sense of humor about themselves. You will see that throughout the day. That includes our next speaker, Paula Switzer. Paula, well, for a former IBMer, she has an incredible sense of humor. However, a better three-letter moniker for Paula is FOP, Friend of Paula. And not just because she was in Up With People and toured all over the country. No, it's more for her teachings in the subjects of leadership and emotional intelligence. She cannot walk through an airport without somebody stopping her to say thank you. In 12 minutes' time, I think you'll see why. You'll be an FOP as well. Please welcome Paula Switzer.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. My father died in the spring of 2002 after a lengthy illness. Now, one of the things that he requested was to be able to die at home, and so we enlisted the support of hospice to help us through that process. My sister and I and my boys were planning a trip out of town, and so I talked with the hospice nurse to see if we could take the trip. She said, I think your father's stable, so I went on the trip with my sons. A few days into the trip, I got a call from my sister saying Dad's condition had worsened, and they had ordered a hospital bed for his home in my parents' small living room in their town. So the boys and I came back, and I went up to Iowa to be with my father. Now, I have to tell you that my father and I had talked a lot about the dying process. He was very aware of what was going to happen. And one of the things that was important to him was to be able to have access to music. He loves music as much as I do. So he had asked me for some music, and I had bought him a CD player, which he had never had, and got him a couple of CDs. Now, one of the CDs was of an artist of mine that I particularly like, Lori Line and her Pop Chamber Orchestra. Are there any Lori Line fans in the room? Anyone heard of her? She's fabulous. Well, one of the things that she does is most of the CD is instrumental, but there are a couple of numbers on there that are vocal. She has a rather large African-American male that travels with her, Robert Robinson, and he has just an incredible rendition of the song On Eagle's Wings on the CD. So I went up to Iowa to be with my father and to attend to him, and after I'd been there for a while, I remembered his request for music. I happened to look over in the corner, and there was a CD player with the CD in it. So I went over and I turned it on, and immediately On Eagle's Wings came on. I went over to the hospital bed, and Dad and I sat there and listened to the music with tears in both of our eyes. That was one of his favorite songs as well as mine. So the next thing that happened was that his condition worsened. And Dad and I had a pretty good relationship, and we teased each other, pushed each other out of our comfort zones a little bit. So at one point I went over to the hospital bed, and I said, Dad, let me sing to you. And with all the courage he could muster and a smile on his face, he looked up at me and he said, no! Now, I chuckled at that, and ironically, that was the last word that he ever said to me. He died 2 mornings later on Palm Sunday morning. Now, my mom, my sister, and I went to the funeral home to make arrangements, and the funeral director was there and said, well, what kind of music would you like for the service? My mother had a song that she requested, and I said, well, I'd really like to have On Eagle's Wings. And he said, well, let me pass that on to the pastor and his wife and see if they can do that. Now, you have to understand, in a small town, in a Baptist church, you get more bang for your buck. Because not only does the minister perform the service, but he and his wife play the music and sing as well. So the next morning we went back to make a few more arrangements, and while I was there at the funeral home, in walked Pastor Rob. He went over to my mother. Phyllis, I'm so sorry to hear about Frank's passing. We know how much he suffered, but he's in God's hands now. Paula, I was going to call you later today. I shared the music request with my wife, and we're just not that familiar with On Eagle's Wings, and I just don't think we can sing it, but we have a whole list of other songs that we're very comfortable singing. Immediately into my head popped a little voice, you can sing it. Now, I don't know if that was my father's voice or perhaps my intuition, which is a gift that I have, or perhaps my higher power. But before I could judge it or evaluate it or silence it, out of my mouth came the words, you can sing it. And I did. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn. make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hands. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you for encouraging me and allowing me to be who I am, for using my gifts and my talents, and thanks for letting me get the last word in. Well, let me tell you that there's good reason why it's important for us to use our gifts and our strengths. And I want to ask you that question. What about you? Are there times when you haven't listened to the little voice in your head, where maybe you haven't used your gifts and talents as fully as you could? One of the things I would encourage you to do tonight is to go home and to sit down, and whether it's in quiet reflection or with your significant other or your spouse, think about the gifts that you bring. Because when we bring our gifts, whether it's to our family life or to an organization, everyone wins. Because our gifts typically bring us joy, and they bring others joy as well. There's a lot of research to back this up. Let me just ask you if any of you have heard of Tom Rath with the Gallup Organization, some of the work that he's done. And he's written some wonderful books and a lot of the research that has come out of the work that they've done. I want to share some things from their latest book, which is called Strengths-Based Leadership. Here's what they found. In organizations where leaders do not focus on employees' strengths, there's only about a 9% chance that employees will become engaged. Now, if we had more time, I would share some horror stories with you about what a disengaged employee looks like. You may have experienced that. I had a chance to hear Tom Rath speak a while back, and one of the things that he said was, you know, we do a lot of work at the Gallup Organization, and we come up with a lot of different labels, and the word kindly, or the word that we use, actively disengaged employees, is probably one of the kindest euphemisms we've ever come up with. Now, on the other hand, in organizations where leaders do focus on employees' strengths, there's about a 73% chance that employees will be engaged. That's 8-fold. So you see, capitalizing on team talents is not only a smart business decision, it's also the right thing to do. Now, in our work with teams, I want to share a little bit about that with you. We've used something called the Team Talents Model, and we also have something we call the Z process. With the Team Talents Model, there are 4 talents or natural roles that people tend to play when they're on a team. And I'm going to demonstrate these for you. The first role is that of the creator. I don't know if you can see this, but there are dollar signs on here, and the creators will bring dollars into your organization because they're always thinking about new ideas, new products, new services, new ways of doing things. They are in their glory when they are creating things. Perhaps you have a little bit of creator in you. The second role is that of the advancer. Now, the advancers are those that love to move an idea forward. They have the uncanny ability of taking all those ideas that the creators come up with, and they can zero in and go, that one is a winner. And they know how to get the right people on the bus and to move that idea forward. That's an important skill. Maybe some of you have a little bit of advancer in you. The third role that people play on the team is that of the refiner. No, I don't think that's going to work. If we put that product into production, that is really going to slow our process down. Our customer service reps, no way can they take on additional work right now. Our systems are not up to speed. The refiners are in their glory when they are making an idea better. Sometimes we may call them the naysayers, but they want the same thing that the rest of us want, which is a well-thought-out, quality product that we can all be proud of when it goes out the door. And then lastly, there is the role of the executor. These are safety glasses. The executors want a well-thought-out plan that they can execute on time, under budget, and just have, again, a good quality product. But they want a well-thought-out plan. So it's important for us to make sure that we can pass that off to the executors who will then execute brilliantly with that plan. Now, we also talk about something called the Z process. And so I want you to think about this big Z that we've got up here. And the way that it works in teams that work well, and this is what we work with teams on, is that we start out with the creator. And this allows people to pass the baton to the right person at exactly the right time. So the creator starts out with a great idea. The advancer says, oh, that one is a winner. It comes to the advancer. The advancer says, okay, this is how we can move this idea forward in the organization. They pass it down to the refiner who says, we got a problem here. I don't think we can, we got to work on this. The advancer says, okay, takes it back up to the creator. The creator, remember, are the idea people. And they go, oh, well, no problem. We'll tweak it this way. They do a workaround with it. So you may have a couple of these kinds of renditions for a while before the refiner finally says, hey, that's a really great plan. And then it's passed off to the executor who can execute it very well. When we've seen teams do this and when we've worked with them on this, they get outcomes much more quickly. They can cut their product development cycles. They can respond to customer threats much more rapidly in the marketplace. It does work. So that's what we want to be able to help you do, is to help you and your teams work together more effectively. Let me just close with a quote, and this one is by Lewis Edwards. And here's what he says. For decades, great athletic teams have harbored a simple secret that few, if any, business teams have discovered. And it is this: in order to play and win together, you have to practice together. So let us help you and your teams practice together so that you can get the outcomes you want and so that you can capitalize on the team talents of your folks. Thank you very much.
Very nicely done.